Marco Rubio hits the ground running, holds the Quad meeting. First Quad meeting in less than 24 hours of Senate confirmation. The meeting signifies Trump administration's focus on addressing the China challenge. As ties with India nosedive, Bangladesh looks to strengthen its relations with China. UNS's foreign minister is in China to significantly boost its relationship. The move signals further strain in the New Delhi-Dhaka relationship, which has suffered significantly after UNS's interim government mainstreamed radical and extremist Islamist elements in Bangladesh. The big story that we are tracking right now, viewers, US President Donald Trump has upended one of the nation's long-standing immigration policies, effectively ending birthright citizenship as we know it. Under his new executive order, Trump claims the 14th Amendment has been misinterpreted, saying it has always excluded those born in the US who are not under the jurisdiction of the country at the time of their birth. The implications are grave. Millions of children born to parents on temporary visas would no longer have the automatic right to citizenship. The new directive specifically targets children born to individuals in the US under these circumstances. First being that we are playing out on your screens, a mother unlawfully present, a father not a US citizen or permanent resident, or those whose parents' presence is only temporary. This means children born to H-1B visa holders, student visa holders, or even tourists could now find themselves without the citizenship they once assumed was theirs by birthright. This move hits hard, especially the Indian American community, which now comprises over 5.4 million people in the US. Nearly two-thirds of these are first-generation immigrants. As their numbers rise, this decision has sent shockwaves through the families who came to the US for work, study or tourism, only to find their children's citizenship status now in grave jeopardy. Consider the impact on families here on H-1B visas, many of whom have waited years for a green card. With birthright citizenship under threat, their children born in the US would no longer be guaranteed US citizenship. The implications are profound, viewers. Not only would these children lose the right to petition for their parents' green cards when they turn 21, but their very future in America would be completely clouded with uncertainty. Immigration experts fear that this could discourage skilled Indian professionals from pursuing opportunities in the US. Many may begin to reconsider their options, turning to countries like Canada, Australia, or where immigration policies are more welcoming and family-friendly. The US risks losing the very talent that has fueled its innovation and growth for decades. But it is important to note here that the move is not retrospective. It does not apply to those who have already been granted citizenship. 22 states have already challenged this, and its implementation is still months away. Its potential to shake the foundations of US immigration is undeniable. The fight for birthright citizenship isn't just a battle over legalities. It's a battle for the soul of the American dream. The decision may end up pushing talented individuals away from country that has long prided itself on being a land of opportunities, and in doing so, America could find itself standing at crossroads, facing a future where the innovation, diversity and talent that once made it great may slip through its fingers. All right, let's get in Nick Harper joining me for more on this to talk more about the impact this could have and why this is so significant. Nick, good to have you on the show. And the first thing I want to ask you is that the decision, the executive order decision, many thought was actually going to target illegal immigrants, but it has sent shockwaves across the legal immigrant community as well.
You're right, Gordy. Yeah, very interesting the way that Donald Trump has laid out this executive order, because throughout his election campaign, he spoke about illegal immigration. And the thought was that that was going to be, as it has been, his main and first order of business, to secure the US-Mexico border, to stop millions of people, as we saw under the Biden administration, entering the US illegally. And in this executive order, he is ending birthright citizenship, something that is written into the US Constitution, something that has been backed up by the Supreme Court in years gone by. But within that order itself, as you mentioned, when you break it down, it not just targets people who are here in the United States illegally, but also legally or on a temporary basis on H-1B1 visas, or if they are here as a tourist. So we have seen a very confused, angered reaction across the United States. We've seen 22 of the 50 states already suing the Trump administration over this new executive order. It is something that is facing unprecedented legal challenges. It's something that's likely to be heading towards the courts. It could potentially end up all the way in the Supreme Court. Donald Trump making it very clear that he wants to do something to end the immigration that he feels is a tremendous problem for the United States. But the reverse of all of this, as you mentioned, it could limit that land of opportunity that the United States has presented in the past, and it could limit that diversity within the workplace, being able to bring Indian workers here to the United States to work in the technology industry in Silicon Valley. It could have a negative impact for the United States, but of course the other countries who have been sending workers here who may now not want to do so because of the changes that Donald Trump is putting in.
Nick, talk to us about the fact that there is a lot of uncertainty about the implementation of this as well. Yes, the executive order says that it gets in motion from the 20th of February, but the fact that it's being challenged by over, almost 24 states, where does that leave in terms of its longevity and whether it's actually going to be implemented? Nick, is my voice reaching you? All right. I believe that's a question that we're going to keep asking till we have clarity on what really will be the status of the executive order. In fact, viewers, more on the H-1B visa debate that has really sent shockwaves across the Indian American community. Donald Trump has expressed a balanced view on the H-1B program. Speaking at a White House news conference, he stressed the need to bring in what he described as competent people from around the world, pointing out that this isn't just about engineers, but professionals across various fields. He also noted the growing demand for skilled workers, especially in tech and other industries. Donald Trump reiterated the importance of balancing high-quality immigration with business growth, saying the H-1B program is essential for attracting top talent to the U.S. While he acknowledged the various views on the issue, he maintained that the program plays a key role in boosting the country's workforce. However, there's a clear divide within Donald Trump's base on this issue. Tech leaders like Elon Musk support the program to help recruit skilled workers. Some of his supporters argue that it takes jobs away from American workers. Currently, the minimum salary for H-1B visa holders stands at about $60,000, but proposals suggest increasing it to $120,000 or more. This significant rise could disproportionately affect entry-level and mid-level professionals, narrowing the talent pipeline for Indian IT firms. All right. Staying with more news coming in from the U.S., a bombshell has in fact exploded in Donald Trump's Washington. Vivek Ramaswamy, the former presidential hopeful and tech entrepreneur, has resigned from his role as the co-head of the Department of Government Efficiency. The announcement follows a whirlwind of controversy, with some questioning whether Elon Musk himself may have pushed Ramaswamy out or not. This report tells you the story in greater detail.
Have Donald Trump and Elon Musk dumped Vivek Ramaswamy? His surprise exit from DOGE and sudden disappearance from Trump 2.0 events comes on the heels of his bold and controversial comments on X. On December 26th, Ramaswamy blasted American culture, calling it mediocre and accusing companies of prioritizing foreign engineers over American talent. Reports indicate his words hit a nerve, not just with critics, but with some key figures in Trump's inner circle. So did Musk pull the strings? The tension had reportedly been brewing for months. Musk focused on government reform, reportedly wasn't thrilled with Ramaswamy's leadership style or his deviation from DOGE's mission. With Ramaswamy now out, Musk is firmly in control of DOGE. But Ramaswamy's departure also adds fuel to the fire, raising ethical concerns about program structure and its potential conflict of interest. With legal challenges already dogging DOGE, Musk's leadership is under a microscope. The program, which aims to slash up to $2 trillion from federal costs, is facing scrutiny over its transparency and whether it violates federal advisory rules. For Ramaswamy, the resignation marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Now setting his sights on Ohio, he's preparing for a gubernatorial run in 2026, following the term limits of current Governor Mike DeWine. It's clear that Ramaswamy's exit from DOGE wasn't just about government reform, it's about setting the stage for a comeback in the heart of America. But with legal battles brewing for DOGE and Musk's vision for government efficiency in flux, the future remains uncertain. With Musk at the helm, DOGE will continue its ambitious mission, but will the push for reform spark new legal and political headache? And as Ramaswamy eyes a political future in Ohio, the question remains, was his exit from DOGE a strategic move or a forced one? For now, all eyes are on Ohio and Washington, where the stakes are sky high and the players are ready to make their next move.
All right, we're slipping into a quick break. On the other side, Israel's top military leadership is grappling with the fallout from the catastrophic October 7 Hamas attack. We find out why. Stay with us.
Actor of the Year. By the way, my dear friends, you know, probably I am one of the first ones in the history of NDTV to have this rare, proud honor of announcing and honoring as in the place of a real hero to a reel of my own movie, Shrikant. Without a further ado, with great admiration, love and due respect, the best actor of the year goes to Shri Rajkumar Rao. Please come on to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rajkumar Rao's versatility, dedication to meaningful cinema, and consistent delivery of powerful performances continued in 2024. His recent roles in Shrikant, Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, Stree 2, and Wiki Vidya Ka Wo Wala video showcases his deep commitment to his craft, often transforming himself physically and emotionally to suit the character's demands, making Rajkumar Rao the NDTV Actor of 2024.
जोरदार तालियां राजकुमार के लिए। भाई हम सबके दिलों के राजकुमार भी तो हैं ये। राजकुमार, आपसे पूछना चाहेंगे हम, 2024 मेरे ख्याल से आपके जीवन का सबसे सुनहरा साल आप इसको मानेंगे?
Well, definitely. First of all, thank you so much, NDTV. Thank you, sir. Thank you, jury. Thank you, Shrikant, the real Shrikant, for giving us your life story and for giving me this opportunity to play you on screen, because it was one of the most challenging parts. But I had so much fun because when there are challenges, then only it's fun. Otherwise, it gets very monotonous, very boring.
आपने तो अपॉर्चुनिटी छीन लिया, नहीं तो मैं खुद प्ले करता था यार।
नहीं, प्लीज कुछ काम हमें भी करने दो। आप सब कुछ करोगे तो फिर हम क्या करेंगे?
नहीं, सीक्वल 2 में हम दोनों लड़ेंगे।
डन।
किसको अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगा, किसका लुक बेटर होगा, देखेंगे ना।
डन। बट यार 2024 बहुत ही अच्छा रहा। आई थिंक गॉड हैज बीन रियली काइंड। दिस इज माय सेकंड इंडियन ऑफ द ईयर. I received it in 2017 because that was also a fabulous year. But I want every year to be a fabulous year for our cinema, for our stories. I wish कि हम लोग अच्छी कहानियाँ कहें, अच्छा content बनाएं, so that we can films like Shrikant, where we can inspire people, because his life is so inspiring and not many people knew about him, unfortunately. But through cinema, we can tell such beautiful stories which can touch your heart, which can change someone's life. So I just wish कि हर साल 2024 जैसा ही हो और मैं यहाँ पर और आता रहूँ और ऐसे कमाल श्रीकांत जैसे लोगों से अवार्ड लेता रहूँ. So again, thank you so much NDTV. This means a lot to me.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, This is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Actor of the Year. By the way, my dear friends, you know, probably I am one of the first ones in the history of NDTV to have this rare, proud honor of announcing and honoring as in the place of a real hero to a reel of my own movie, Shrikant. Without a further ado, with great admiration, love and due respect, the best actor of the year goes to Shri Rajkumar Rao. Please come on to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rajkumar Rao's versatility, dedication to meaningful cinema, and consistent delivery of powerful performances continued in 2024. His recent roles in Shrikant, Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, Stree 2, and Wiki Vidya Ka Wo Wala video showcases his deep commitment to his craft, often transforming himself physically and emotionally to suit the character's demands, making Rajkumar Rao the NDTV Actor of 2024.
जोरदार तालियां राजकुमार के लिए। भाई हम सबके दिलों के राजकुमार भी तो हैं ये। राजकुमार, आपसे पूछना चाहेंगे हम 2024 मेरे ख्याल से आपके जीवन का सबसे सुनहरा साल आप इसको मानेंगे?
Well, definitely. First of all, thank you so much, NDTV. Thank you, sir. Thank you, jury. Thank you, Shrikant, the real Shrikant.
This is India Global. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. We now turn our attention to the Middle East, where we speak about the freed Israeli hostage and her first Instagram post. Romi Gonin's first Instagram post since her release from Hamas captivity has really captured the emotions of a nation. After being freed on Sunday, after spending over 430 days in captivity, Gonin shared a heartfelt message saying that there is life after death, alongside an image of herself embracing her mother, a moment she described as well surreal. Her gratitude was evident as she thanked the people of Israel, her family, friends, acknowledging that their prayers and strength helped guide her through the darkest days of her ordeal. But Gonin's message of hope was tempered with a call for action. As she celebrates her return, she reminded the world that there are 94 hostages that continue to remain in Gaza, fighting for their lives. Meanwhile, Israel's top military leadership is now grappling with the fallout from the catastrophic October 7 Hamas attack, which left 1,200 people dead and over 200 people were in fact captured. In a dramatic move on Tuesday, Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Herzi, and the head of the IDF Southern Command, Major General Finkelman, announced their resignation, citing their responsibility for their failures that led to the Hamas onslaught. This is, in fact, it comes with a deep sense of accountability. In his letter to the defense minister, the general acknowledged the military's failure on the 7th of October to protect Israeli citizens, a failure that remains with me every day. That's what he says in the letter, every hour, and will remain with me for the rest of my lives. It's important to note that the 7th of October Hamas attack has been the single largest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Both Halavi and Finkelman are joining a growing list of high-ranking officials who have resigned in the wake of the attack, including top figures from the military intelligence and Gaza divisions. Let's get in my colleague Mohammad Ghazali to really talk to us about, it's a moving story and just tells how it's like to be in captivity for about 430 days. But Ghazali, what I want to speak to you about is finally one is seeing some major fallout of the attack as far as Israeli leadership is going. You've been working up the phones, you've been talking to your sources. What are they telling you about the Israeli political, military landscape looking like?
See, the political and military landscape or the division was very wide since the war broke out, because initially in the response to the Hamas attack on October 7, even the decision when to launch an attack, whether it should be a ground invasion, whether the forces should stay in Gaza it was very out in the open that the military leadership as well as the political leadership had huge differences. Even with Mr. Netanyahu, his right-wing cabinet colleagues pushed him till the end to ensure that Gaza is occupied, or reoccupied Gaza campaign also went on throughout this war. Settlements had to be built into Gaza was the main focus of these cabinet colleagues of Mr. Netanyahu, while the army chief, or say the IDF chief there, or the defense establishment people and experts in think tanks over there, kept suggesting the government that occupying Gaza or staying in Gaza will only keep to sort of inflate this entire conflict for far more days than what it was anticipated initially. It was also believed that Mr. Antony Blinken, the previous Secretary of State from the United States, as well as his counterparts in Israel and other countries, kept suggesting that IDF has not been able to inflict that kind of damage onto Hamas, which was expected earlier, which was one of the war objectives. The two major war objectives which Mr. Netanyahu outlined immediately after the attack was to dismantle Hamas, to ensure that it doesn't come back into power, and second was to retrieve all the hostages from Gaza Strip, which the war has not achieved because the ceasefire came through the external interference or mediation from Qatar, Egypt and other countries. So this was always the baseline of this conflict between the political class and the military class, and IDF chief has time and again said that somebody will have to take responsibility. And why Mr. Netanyahu didn't take or resign from the cabinet or from his post was because we have seen in the past that how Golda Meir, one of the very remarkable prime ministers of Israel, saw what happened after 1973, the war with Egypt, how she had to face consequences in the elections. And that is exactly what Mr. Netanyahu is also believing, because he's already facing those corruption charges, the trial of which is still ongoing. And we saw that before the outbreak of the war, that how long-time protest was going on in Israel to halt that particular law which could have paused any kind of trial against Mr. Netanyahu in the corruption charges. So overall, right now, on one side in the Israeli society, obviously there is a lot of optimism that these three hostages have come back home. The ceasefire deal brokered by Israel and its allies have worked out. Now all eyes are on next Saturday or the coming Saturday, when it is expected that more hostages will be released by Hamas.
And Ghazali, I wanted to speak to you about the other part, which is that, this is a phased transition that the region is seeing. Talk to us about the fact that now that there's Donald Trump in office, his administration, it has a different view about the entire situation. How will that impact Israeli political landscape, and will that have an impact on Benjamin Netanyahu, his government, as well as the military?
See, except Jimmy Carter as the United States president, all the presidents after him or before him have been very supportive of Israel. Even Mr. Biden, Mr. Trump, Mr. Obama, they have all been very supportive of Israel's policies in its own territory as well as in the occupied territory. And as rightly you pointed out, Mr. Trump was the first one to sort of declare Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, while Jerusalem is a disputed territory as per the international law. Second, he was the one who was the architect of Abraham Accords to bring more Arab countries, or to sort of bring them on the table to recognize Israel as a state, establish diplomatic relations. And then he was the one who also spoke about bringing two major players, Israel and Saudi Arabia, or to bring the normalization deal, or to at least to speak about it. Now, in this particular term, what we heard that how Mr. Trump actually forced down this ceasefire deal onto the Netanyahu government, asking him to accept it anyway. But the Israeli government there, or the Israeli diplomats there, believe that perhaps in exchange of this Israeli government accepting the ceasefire deal, maybe Mr. Trump will allow more settler movement or allow more settlements to be built in the occupied territory. And exactly he has hinted that by lifting sanctions on those settlers who were brought under sanction, or those who were put under sanction by the previous Biden administration. So in some way or the other, Mr. Netanyahu also believes that as per all the previous US presidents, Mr. Trump will be more friendly. He will take decisions which will be more favorable for the state of Israel.
All right, Mohammad Ghazali, appreciate you taking out the time for a very important story, and in fact staying with the region, staying with the Middle East, and moving on to Iran, where we've got a very special and an important voice coming in from Davos. The chief of Global Nuclear Watchdog, IAEA, speaks to NDTV. The chief of IAEA speaks to Vishnu Som, my colleague in Davos. Europe's largest and now Russian-occupied ZNPP nuclear power plant in conflict-hit Ukraine had been minutes or hours away a few times from a nuclear catastrophe. The head of the Intergovernmental Forum for Scientific and Technical Cooperation in the nuclear field told NDTV. Listen in.
the West Asia situation, fingers crossed, might be a little better now with the hostage situation improving. But there was a huge concern that missile barrages might end up resulting in something larger. Many in Israel say that Iran is building a nuclear weapon. Is it the IAEA's belief that that is the case?
No, we don't have any evidence that Iran is building a nuclear weapon. But at the same time, it is true that Iran has accumulated a vast amount of enriched uranium, a very high level of enrichment, which makes it very, very close to weapon level grade. And on top of that, we have not been having the full cooperation of Iran in clarifying a few important things about past and perhaps present activities. I am fully engaged, I have to say. We are inspecting. The thing is that we are not inspecting at the levels or in all the places that we believe we should be inspecting. I had the opportunity to visit, I've been very frequently to Tehran, but this time I met with President Pezeshkian, with the foreign minister and others, and we are trying to improve the situation. Of course, now with the change of administration in the United States, there is an expectation that things may be moving again. We are going to be talking to all partners, as we always do, in trying to make or to bring more certainty to this very volatile situation in Iran.
All right, we slip into a quick break, but on the other side, we decode why Bangladesh is now increasingly looking eastwards towards China at a time of rising tensions with its long-time neighbor and ally, India. Stay with us, we decode that story for you.
Actor of the Year. By the way, my dear friends, you know, probably I am one of the first ones in the history of NDTV to have this rare, proud honor of announcing and honoring as in the place of a real hero to a reel of my own movie, Shrikant. Without a further ado, with great admiration, love and due respect, the best actor of the year goes to Shri Rajkumar Rao. Please come on to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rajkumar Rao's versatility, dedication to meaningful cinema, and consistent delivery of powerful performances continued in 2024. His recent roles in Shrikant, Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, Stree 2, and Wiki Vidya Ka Wo Wala video showcases his deep commitment to his craft, often transforming himself physically and emotionally to suit the character's demands, making Rajkumar Rao the NDTV Actor of 2024.
जोरदार तालियां राजकुमार के लिए। भाई हम सबके दिलों के राजकुमार भी तो हैं ये। राजकुमार, आपसे पूछना चाहेंगे हम, 2024 मेरे ख्याल से आपके जीवन का सबसे सुनहरा साल आप इसको मानेंगे?
Well, definitely. First of all, thank you so much, NDTV. Thank you, sir. Thank you, jury. Thank you, Shrikant, the real Shrikant, for giving us your life story and for giving me this opportunity to play you on screen, because it was one of the most challenging parts. But I had so much fun because when there are challenges, then only it's fun. Otherwise, it gets very monotonous, very boring.
आपने तो अपॉर्चुनिटी छीन लिया, नहीं तो मैं खुद प्ले करता था यार।
नहीं, प्लीज कुछ काम हमें भी करने दो। आप सब कुछ करोगे तो फिर हम क्या करेंगे?
नहीं, सीक्वल 2 में हम दोनों लड़ेंगे।
Done.
किसको अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगा, किसका लुक बेटर होगा, देखेंगे ना।
Done. But yeah, 2024 बहुत ही अच्छा रहा. I think God has been really kind. This is my second Indian of the year. I received it in 2017 because that was also a fabulous year. But I want every year to be a fabulous year for our cinema, for our stories. I wish कि हम लोग अच्छी कहानियाँ कहें, अच्छा content बनाएं, so that we can films like Shrikant, where we can inspire people, because his life is so inspiring and not many people knew about him, unfortunately. But through cinema, we can tell such beautiful stories which can touch your heart, which can change someone's life. So I just wish कि हर साल 2024 जैसा ही हो और मैं यहाँ पर और आता रहूँ और ऐसे कमाल Shrikant जैसे लोगों से अवार्ड लेता रहूँ. So again, thank you so much, NDTV. This means a lot to me.
Those kind of roles, I mean, how
India Global, I'm Gauri Dwivedi. We now turn our attention to what's happening in South Asian geopolitics. Dramatic shift is underway. Bangladesh is increasingly looking eastward, seeking closer economic and diplomatic ties with China and other East Asian powers. The pivot comes at a time of rising tensions with its longtime neighbor and ally, India. Bangladesh's interim government and its advisor for foreign affairs, Tauheed Hussain, is currently in Beijing, during which he will hold talks with his Chinese counterpart, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. But as Bangladesh seeks to diversify its international relations, the relationship with India remains under strain. Tensions have flared over political instability in Dhaka, particularly surrounding the controversial exile of Bangladesh's former leader Sheikh Hasina. With the interim government under the fire amidst concerns over the safety of Hindus in Bangladesh, diplomatic efforts have failed to heal the rift. The diplomatic and political crisis deepens with the ongoing issue of Hasina's extradition. Bangladesh has issued a formal request for the return of its former prime minister, who faces charges of crimes against humanity and genocide in the International Crimes Tribunal. Asif Nazrul, who is Bangladesh's law advisor, warned that India's refusal to comply would be a violation of the extradition treaty between the two countries. In fact, Bangladesh is now exploring international support to pressure India into handing over Hasina. The country has already issued a red alert for her return, while diplomatic efforts have intensified. Amidst this political turmoil, the interim government is struggling to restore law and order, following a violent student uprising that led to Hasina's ouster. As Bangladesh turns the gaze eastward, the shifting alliances and rising tensions with India are set to mark a pivotal moment in the region's political landscape. Let's get in Saurabh Gupta joining me live from Kolkata to give a sense of how things are looking right now for Bangladesh. Saurabh, every day there is fresh news coming in from Dhaka indicating that the nosedive that has happened in relationship with India, there seems to be no upside to it right now. In fact, the trip to China comes at a time when there's no effort being made by Mohammad Yunus's government to restore relationship with India. That's shocking.
Yes, it is, and if we've been following some of the agreements, some of the announcements that are being made during the bilateral visit, the devil lies in the details actually. Because if you see, there are two things that actually caught my eye. One is, of course, the river water data, sharing agreement. Now, that's something that's been a bit of a problem even between India and Bangladesh, even during the Hasina regime, and that is something that Bangladesh and China seem to be, moving forward on, whereas with India, that seems to be largely on the back burner. Even though, and one more thing to touch upon is that it's not as if Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina did not visit China. Even she did. But what seems to be the sense that one seems to be getting is that India was still very reassured about India's strategic interests, even with that visit. But in the current scenario, perhaps it would be a little more discomforting for those watching the India-Bangladesh relations space. Apart from that, another thing that seems to have stood out is this whole, exchange of patients or medical facilities, I beg your pardon, for those from Bangladesh in China. And apparently, hospitals are going to be designated in Kunming for Bangladeshi patients. And we know a lot of Bangladeshi patients travel to India for treatment. A lot of them travel not just to Kolkata, but also to cities like, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and, other places in southern India for treatment. So those are things also that perhaps one sees that China seemed to be making also inroads in those spaces. And till now, largely Bangladeshi patients would travel to India, but there seems to be now hospitals designated in Kunming, and also China setting up hospitals in Bangladesh, and also the fact that the river water sharing data agreement is something that again is something that has been a part of India-Bangladesh ties as well, but China seems to be moving in on that as well. So yes, there is a lot of concern in that space. For those who watch that space, these seem to be moves that China is making. Also, a concession on debt is something that is also being talked about. So all of these things are on the table, and this is why those who watch India-Bangladesh ties closely seem to be viewing these developments with some amount of concern.
Saurabh, Bangladesh also has very large amounts of Chinese investments. In fact, China is the largest investor in Bangladesh. At a time when the country needs money, it needs money to restore everything from law and order to its export industry. It's quite natural it will lean more to China. And given the fact that Mohammad Yunus's government has mainstreamed radical elements, has elements in his government which are almost anti-India, what are we really looking at going forward here?
Well, one got a sense from the Indian Foreign Secretary's visit to Dhaka that perhaps, the ties that really have nosedived, and you mentioned, at the top of that is, of course, the demand for the extradition of the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina. But there seemed to be a sense that other areas of the partnership, and the Bangladesh partnership, like we've been reporting on NDTV, is not just one issue. There are multiple issues and multiple sectors where this partnership takes place. For example, a few days ago, even when it comes to waterways, we had ships sailing, two places in Assam through Bangladesh waters. So it was seen as a step that perhaps the other sectors were not going to be affected so much in India's strategic interests. Perhaps there would be, still salvaged. But with these developments, many believe that it seems that the situation, whereas which includes India-Bangladesh ties and the strategic interests of India, seem to be in a slightly more complicated territory at this point, especially with this visit and the announcements that are being made during this visit.
All right, Saurabh Gupta, really appreciate you taking out the time to speak to us about a story that's so important for India's strategic calculus. Let's also now get in Ashok Sajjanar, former ambassador, joining me on the broadcast. Good to have you, sir. Talk to us about the cozying up of ties between Bangladesh and China at a time when Mohammad Yunus's government is making absolutely no efforts or limited efforts to restore the long-standing ties between India and Bangladesh.
Yes, thank you very much, Gauri, for having me on your program. You're very right, that this visit by Tawhid Hussain to Beijing and his interactions with his counterpart Wang Yi, they need to be watched with keen interest. You see, under normal circumstances, there would not have been any anxiety, if any of our neighbors are having ties with China. After all, China is the second largest economy in the world, $17 trillion economy, etc. And so, it would be somewhat natural for countries to have economic relations, vibrant economic ties with that country. Even Sheikh Hasina, as your correspondent Saurabh Gupta was saying, she had, her government also had strong relations. In fact, defense relations also with China. But of course, there we were assured that our core security interests and strategic interests would not be compromised, that they would be taken fully safeguarded and they would be taken care of. Now, as far as the Mohammad Yunus government is concerned, that has come under a big question mark. And we know that as far as China is concerned, it is always fishing in troubled waters as far as our neighbors are concerned. It's trying to, the very strong connect between India, cultural, historical, linguistic, people-to-people ties between these countries and India. It has always trying to muddy the waters. And also the huge, the imperatives of interdependency that are there. Because we have seen in terms of the support that India has provided to Bangladesh, more than $8 billion, under the Neighborhood First policy. We have provided non-reciprocal, generous support, economic support in every sense. And we were assured during Sheikh Hasina's tenure of about 15 years from 2019 till August last year, that our, as far as our borders are concerned, as far as Indian extremists are concerned, they would not be given refuge. So that is under a question mark. So we really have to watch this space very, very closely
Yes.
and take action accordingly as the situation develops.
And it also comes at a time when Bangladesh desperately needs funds. You know, its economy is going through a really bad patch. Its biggest money spinner, which is the textile industry, is facing a major slowdown. Its law and order is completely out of control. All that requires money, requires funds. How much do you expect China to swoop in to take greater control and leverage of the Bangladeshi economy?
Okay, there are two things here, Gauri. You know, number one, China has deep pockets. And that is why we've seen, whether it is under its Belt and Road Initiative or its other programs, it has gone out of its way. You look at Pakistan, you know, where its strategic interests are involved, then, you know, basically those are strategic investments. They are not basically governed by economic considerations as to how, you know, certain projects are going to make profits or not. So it has the capacity. Number two is, as we saw in the case of Sri Lanka in 22, that it is not going to sort of, you know, go out of its way to help out a nation with very generous support. You would recall that in 22, it was India which had to come to the support, which had to come to the aid of Sri Lanka, although it was facing shortages, whether it was of energy, whether it was of fossil fuels, medicine, food, every sense of the word. It was, you know, it didn't have any foreign exchange reserves because, number one, COVID-19 pandemic had hit it hard. And then number two, in 22, we had the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Yes. And a couple of its industry, whether it is tourism or export of tea and textiles, those had suffered. It was India that came to its support even before the IMF had come to its support.
Exactly.
So we'll really have to wait and see as to how China also assesses. I think under the circumstances that China will come to some extent, you know, try to bail it out from its very precarious situation that Bangladesh finds itself in. But I think a long-term strategy, I would still imagine, you know, like you've seen Sri Lanka, you've seen Maldives, you've seen even now Afghanistan.
All that China will do, Ambassador Sajjanar, is give loans, no write-offs, no grants, no aids, no write-offs, only more loans.
And exact is, you know, its consideration, exact its price from there. There are no free meals as far as, no free lunches as far as China is concerned. So
absolutely. You said that right, Ambassador Sajjanar. I'm completely out of time. Thank you so much for taking out the time to decode what's happening in Bangladesh. On that note, we slip into a very short break. On the other side, we find out why the 4 Quad countries have reaffirmed their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific and what this means for China.
Quidco gives you cashback every time you shop on over 5,000 brands. It always pays to Quidco. Sign up and start saving today. Visit quidco.com.
With retirement round the corner, I want to spend more time with my family and less time worrying about the numbers. Which reminds me.
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance.
Hi, I'd like a quick quote.
No problem. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK. UK residents aged 50 to 80 are guaranteed to be accepted. Depending on your age, your loved ones can get a cash payout up to £10,000.
And that money could help with funeral costs or even as a gift for the grandkids. I'll do it.
Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card and free 24/7 GP advice and health services.
You got them all right. That's amazing.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free quote today, call our UK team on 0800 977 5808 or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
If you're homeless, you're never safe.
Tonight, too many young people like Kira will be at risk, right here on our streets. But you could help a young person find safety and begin a new future by sponsoring a room at Centrepoint.
It's more than a room. You get real support and training to help you get your life back on track.
Please search Centrepoint Room online today or call 0808 281 8001 and be the turning point for a young person like Kira. Thank you.
Love a good deal? Try free-to-play Deal or No Deal, only at Tombola. There's up to £1,000 to be won. Get that good deal feeling. Open for fun.
I'll fix him, love. Poor pet. Just shows you never know what's going to happen. Which reminds me, I need to protect the life we've built. That's why I'm looking into Smart Family Life Insurance. Hi, I'd like a quick quote, please.
OK. You can choose a benefit amount up to £750,000, depending on your age. If you're a UK resident aged 18 to 64, you can apply with just a few health and lifestyle questions. For £250,000 of cover, the price starts at just £14.77 a month.
That's less than I thought. And it could help my husband with the mortgage.
Just like families, not all life insurance is the same. That's why we offer the Smart Family Guarantee.
That's good to know.
You'll also receive a 100% advance in the event of terminal illness and 10% cash back on your first year's premiums. That's the Smart Cashback. Plus, you'll also get your choice of a £125 gift card.
Protect the life you've built the smart way. To get a free quote today, call our specialist UK team on 0800 977 5753 or visit smartinsurance.co.uk.
Those kind of roles, I mean, how
On India Global, we now turn our attention to the first Quad meeting. On his first full day in office, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio hosted the first Quad meeting of foreign ministers with Australia, India and Japan. This was the first major diplomatic session of the Quad since Donald Trump's return to the White House. In a joint statement, the four countries reaffirmed their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, emphasizing the protection of democratic values and territorial integrity. They also shared and issued a sharp warning against any attempts to disrupt the region's stability, aimed directly at China's expansionist activities. Rubio also held one-on-one talks with each of the foreign ministers. Indian Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar highlighted the significance of the timing, noting that the meeting took place just hours after the new administration took office, highlighting the importance and significance of Quad in the foreign policies of its member countries. Reports suggest that Trump officials are planning another Quad meeting at the White House very soon. All right, let's get in Mr. Andrew joining me from Hong Kong to talk about what this means. He's an international independent China strategist, and I hope that your views will be independent, not reflective of Beijing's stance. Mr. Andrew, the fact is that Quad is going to be important in Trump administration. It was held, the first meeting was held just 24 hours after it was sworn in. That indicates that the Quad may be having a sharper focus against China going forward.
Well, of course, China is being held by both parties in the United States as an existential threat against the so-called American-led world order. But of course, with the advent of Trump 2.0, what some of his ambitions on other countries' territories like Canada or Greenland or Panama, it calls into question the so-called American-led order. But be that as it may, of course, the Asia-Pacific is a very important conduit for countries bordering this waterworks. And of course, America has always have an oversized influence and interest in the Asia-Pacific, and of course relies on its allies, the Quad members, to do some of the heavy lifting. Now, the fact remains that, of course, the China's
lifting, Mr. Andrew, are you talking about?
Claims.
What heavy lifting are you talking about? This mechanism talks about supply of vaccines. This mechanism talks about disaster recovery. What heavy lifting are you talking? The fact is that maybe the Quad framework may now change and reshape itself to become a much powerful, stronger mechanism to deal with China. Is that looking like a reality to you right now?
I don't think so. First of all, I think that President Trump is very war adverse. Of course, his cabinet is much more compliant cabinet compared with his Trump 1.0. So what dictates the foreign policy is not so much the Secretary of State, but Trump himself largely. But you can see that on day one, he's withdrawing from the world institutions like WTO and the Paris Agreement on the climate. But also, even before he took office, the first global leader he chose to speak by phone and request the speaking by phone was President Xi. That was before his inaugural, suggesting that he probably wanted to recalibrate his relationship with China. And I don't think he wants to up the ante on China. But as far as China is concerned, the freedom of navigation, in fact, is in very much China's national interest, because China depends on the openness of the sea waterway.
Okay, Mr. Andrew, very
and
rich
import
for
of
somebody to
materials.
talk about freedom of navigation from China's point of view, given the attacks that Philippines has faced, Indonesia has faced, the entire ASEAN countries, most of them have faced. But thank you for your time. Thank you for speaking to me. We agree to disagree on that issue. All right, shifting focus now, the latest from cricket. After an entire controversy emerged over Indian players not wearing jerseys with Pakistan's name on it, the BCCI has clarified that they are now going to follow ICC's guidelines, wear the official logo, which includes Pakistan's name on Indian jerseys. Let's get in Osama, my colleague, who's been tracking this space closely, to talk to us about what this means, the implications of this. The whole day, Osama, we were hearing that BCCI is not going to relent, but it looks like, after all, there are going to be Pakistan written, inscribed over the jerseys of men in blue.
Well, as far as the ICC Champions Trophy is concerned, one controversy died down, that is India not traveling to Pakistan, and in turn, their match is taking place in Dubai. Another controversy emerged. There were multiple reports that BCCI has in fact refused that Indian team players will not be wearing the jersey with the official logo that has the host nation, in this particular case, Pakistan's name on it. But the BCCI secretary, Mr. Saikia, he has now clarified BCCI's stance, saying that India will follow all the ICC guidelines, including the clothing guideline, which says that all the participating nations have to wear the official logo, and that also has the host nation's name on it, and in this particular case, Pakistan. So that controversy that has been going on for the entire day, the BCCI has come out and clarified. Remember, there have been multiple controversies related to the ICC Champions Trophy. One of them is the pre-celebration part of it, where all the team captains, they are supposed to be in Pakistan for the photo op and all the formalities that leads up to the actual tournament. And Rohit Sharma, the Indian captain, the BCCI has said that he will not be traveling. Instead, the BCCI had also requested the ICC to shift those entire, pre-match formalities to Dubai, but the Pakistan Cricket Board has not agreed to it. As far as the clothing guideline is concerned, remember, in all the past ICC tournaments that were held, say for example in India, the last ODI World Cup, or the T20I World Cup, which happened in Dubai, all the nations, they wore the name of India on their particular jerseys, and that has been followed since that time. And this is what the confusion was all about. The BCCI has now come out and said that, look, there is no confusion. Team India will be following all the protocols that ICC has set, and this also includes wearing the host's name on their jerseys.
All right, we leave it there, Osama. Thanks much for bringing that story into perspective for our viewers. All right, we're speaking about clothing. Well, let's now take a look at this report that tells you all about the Milan Men's Fashion Week and which were the men who put their most fashionable foot forward. Take a look.
Setting trends and redefining masculinity. For the upcoming season, the Milan Men's Fashion Week began in the Italian fashion capital. Even though some may have described the Fashion Week schedule as low-key and cold this year, one big trend that dominated the runway was the mob husband aesthetic. This trend is the counter to the viral mob wife trend, where vintage coats, gaudy jewelry and large dark glasses flaunted an ultra-flamboyant, rich and too glam to give a damn attitude. The mob husband trend takes inspiration from the likes of The Godfather, The Sopranos and the Italian designer duo Dolce & Gabbana flashed this trend as they presented their collection titled Paparazzi, tapping into the glitz and glamour of Hollywood celebrity culture. Moving away from the sharp-tailored emphasis of the recent seasons, the designer duo embraced the 60s swagger of La Dolce Vita with relaxed, flashy looks. At Armani, the mob husband trend got a bit more serious, with luxe velvet suits and razored pinstriped, finished with leopard loafers, as though the audience were watching the models through a smoke screen of a vintage jazz bar. Indian designer Dhruv Kapoor took a different route, showcasing co-ed collection with strong influence of impeccable Indian craftsmanship and the rich color palette, mixing the streets of India with the Italian promenades. Last but not the least, the Fashion Week also had a sweet moment when Jordan Bowen and Lucas Marchetto, the designers from the label Jordan Luca, turned their runway into their wedding altar. Family and friends walked the runway, showcasing their new lines, and later cheered them on as the duo tied the knot, quoting, "Love needs to be seen and seen in style." This is Mayank Chaudhary for NDTV.
All right, 50 years after it came, Godfather is still the most stylish statement for men. All that note, thanks so much for watching this edition of India Global with me, Gauri Dwivedi.
I'm a simple man, but now I'm in my 50s, things are getting a little more complicated. Retirement's peeking around the corner, and I wanted to make sure my family would be really looked after if anything happened to me. That's why I decided to learn more about over 50s life insurance from Cover Today. They're the only over 50s life insurer with no waiting period. Unlike other insurers who could make you wait up to 2 years, with Cover Today, you're fully covered from day one. And you're covered for the whole of your life. Plus, unlike other things in life, the price never goes up. Learning more can be simpler. Go online or talk to their friendly UK team in just one phone call.
Cover Today are the only over 50s life insurer with no waiting period and no annoying trips to the doctors either.
Now I'm with Cover Today, I can get on with something much more interesting.
Plus, you get your choice of a £125 gift card. To find out more about Cover Today, call our friendly UK team on 0808 143 4774 or visit covertoday.co.uk.
Time's up, fad diets. Life's too short to only eat grapefruit, hard-boiled eggs, cabbage soup. Ugh. Ditch the diet shakes, measuring tapes, and vibrating plates, and break free from fad diets with Voi. With its combination of clinically proven medication, personalised health app, and one-to-one coaching, join the weight loss revolution today at joinvoi.com.
This baby bear is terrified, torn from her mother's paws at a tender age. They will force her to live alone in a tiny, filthy cage, like so many bears driven mad by loneliness, rubbing their wounds raw against the bars, suffering cruelly day after day, year after year, just for people's entertainment. Four Paws found little Potap crammed into a tiny, squalid cage. He'd been there for almost 9 years, lonely and isolated. There are so many more young bears who need your help. Please call 0800 038 0496 or text BEAR5 to 70800 to give £3 a month via your mobile phone. Every month, your £3 could help us free more bears. Help give bears the veterinary care they need and help them live happy, healthy lives in the freedom of our natural sanctuaries. Please call 0800 038 0496 or text BEAR5 to 70800 to give £3 a month via your mobile phone and help 4 Paws free bears from agonising torture. Please, don't leave these bears to suffer for a single day more.
On our highways, a growing concern. In a dramatic incident, 5 girls escaped from a juvenile home in Visakhapatnam. All that caught on camera. The girls have alleged mistreatment and abuse at that juvenile home. That last headline is our first up story this evening. Some dramatic pictures from the Visakhapatnam town of 5 girls escaping from a juvenile home. The girls accused the home of mistreatment and abuse, and they were not allowed to go home and hence escaped. Those pictures coming to you from Visakhapatnam city. These details just came in a short while ago. My colleague Uma Sudhir has the latest.
Yeah, those dramatic visuals that we see of these young girls actually scaling the wall of the juvenile home in Visakhapatnam to escape, that is something that has caught the attention of not just the authorities but the media as well. And the concern is that 5 of these girls who scaled the walls and come out, they are alleging that they were ill-treated or mistreated inside the home. One of the girls, in fact, says that I'm not being allowed to go home, and the authorities or the people in charge of the home are saying that my mother is going to sell me, and emotionally she asked whether her own mother would actually sell her. But the fact is that very often in these kind of juvenile homes, you do have people under multiple cases, usually POSCO victims, who are brought in there, and very often many of them are also desperate to go home. They are young people, and we have seen multiple instances in the past as well where they would have been shifted to the home for reasons of safety, for keeping them safe, and yet these youngsters, with the desperation to want to go home, do indulge in these kind of actions. And so escape from juvenile homes is not uncommon, I should say. But yes, the Home Minister has reacted to this, and she has said that there will be a report that she has asked for from the District Collector and the Police Commissioner as well. And she wants to know what was going on inside the home which triggered this kind of a reaction from the girls.
Dramatic pictures also remind us and re-emphasize the focus needed on juvenile homes, which is a nationwide issue. Of course, those pictures coming to you from Visakhapatnam, where those 5 girls scaled that wall with barbed wires, jumped over, escaped from that juvenile home, accusing abuse and mistreatment there. Well, now to our shifting focus to our special focus this evening, the continuing face-off over the UGC draft guidelines that states like Tamil Nadu and Kerala have taken the lead and strongly opposed and demanded withdrawal. The core objection is over proposed changes to the process to appoint vice-chancellors, as the draft guidelines curb the state government's powers to appoint search committees and vice-chancellors. DMK chief and Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin had taken the lead in the battle against the centre on those draft guidelines and has alleged that it violates federal principles and the interests of the state. Kerala too, remember, has taken a similar stand, and other opposition rule states are likely to follow suit. Stalin reiterated his position today, asking why governors should be chancellors and why the centre should have the powers to decide on vice-chancellors, when he asks it's the state governments that pay the salaries and administer the institutions. Listen in.